Let the games begin. Top pick sleepers every week I spin. The FF universe here to help you win. The fantasy football universe.
Hey, welcome into week 8, believe it or not, NFL recap we're doing. Sorry, we're struggling switching the accounts to go live on, and yeah, there we are. None of them are working, so cool. That's fun. But anyways, we'll just have to post this on Twitter. It's not a big deal. It is myself. It is Jeremy. How are you doing today, Jeremy?
Hanging in, man. It was a wild week of football yesterday. It was the craziest early slate I can remember. It was a crazy later slate. So it was just awesome. And of course, I fell asleep halfway through it all and had to go rewatch it this morning. But we got there. We got them all. So we're back. And yeah, it was a good one. How about you?
Yeah, it was a crazy day. Like, it was chaotic, but I very much enjoyed it. All the fun festivities we did and watched all the games, It's week 8. You kind of see a lot of teams like making their moves. They're moving forward, they're moving backwards, or where they're going. It's just a fun way to go about doing that. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So overall, well, you want to just straight jump into these games?
Let's do it, man. Let's talk about it.
All right. So what we're doing today is we're going to kind of repack each individual game into 2 fantasy-based questions based off the 2 teams. So if you've been with us before, you know how this is going to go. First up, we are going to go back all the way to Thursday. I know that feels like a long time ago because it probably was. We have the Rams beating the Vikings in Minnesota 30-20. It's a pretty interesting game. The Rams, I'll just say, just look completely back. They look like a whole new team. And the Vikings, they lost Darrisaw. That's probably one of the biggest impacts for their offense moving forward. So you'll see how these questions do on there. Jeremy, I will say, do you think the Rams can win the NFC West?
Yeah, absolutely. It's wide open there. Everyone is 4-4 except for the Rams, who are 3-4. We saw what their offense was able to do. Their defense has tightened up as well, but what their offense was able to do with those 2 main stud wide receivers back in the fold. Kyron is still viable. Cooper and Puka are going nuts all over the place. Matthew Stafford, Demarcus Robinson is a thing again. So yes, the Rams have the firepower. They have the ability. One thing that could get in their way are these other teams in the West, but the 49ers, the Seahawks have proven that they are, have the potential to be beaten. So I think the Rams have just as good a chance as anyone, but I'll still go with the 49ers here.
Yeah, the Rams get the Seahawks next week, and I'm not looking forward to that matchup. I will just say that much because it looks like it's going to be a rough one. It was interesting because we had the notes come out about like them possibly selling Cup for a second, and I feel like that's just kind of fodder because they come back and they're like, yeah, Cup, hey guys, what we're good. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes for them. I was hoping they would sell him, they did not. So yeah, it's gonna be rough for us. To the Vikings side, I think there's more questions around the Vikings at the moment. Now they're 5-2. They've lost 2 straight. Lost the Rams, the Lions last week. With Darnold kind of showing his scars and maybe Aaron Jones not living up to what we wanted them to do. Obviously, Justin Jefferson's still there. TJ Hawkinson's on the mend. How much do you think the loss of Christian Darrisaw hurts this Vikings offense as a whole? Because that's my biggest fantasy question moving forward.
Yeah, it really hurts. I mean, I was a huge believer in Darnold and Kevin O'Connell. We saw in the first quarter they were getting everything right. I blame the refs for like the flag fest that was the second quarter in that game. Outside of that, Darrisaw, that loss really hurt. Darnold couldn't get much going in the second quarter and second half of that game. He threw 2 touchdowns in the first quarter and not again. For me, though, the biggest issue here is Aaron Jones. His yards per carry were cut in half in this game compared to what he did in the previous game against the Detroit Lions. So the Detroit Lions, elite run-stopping D. 1 week later, the Rams, not an elite run-stopping D, and he just couldn't get anything going. Only 3 yards per carry on 19 attempts and not a ton getting going in the passing game too. So I think it really stunts Aaron Jones, and when you can't get the running game or the threat of the running game going, you're really going to have difficulty getting the passing game going to the level that Sam Darnold needs to operate it. We talked about this before. He's more of like a Brock Purdy type, game manager as opposed to kind of that elite quarterback asset. So yeah, it hurts everyone across the board, sadly.
Yeah, like you saw Aaron Jones have the best usage in the NFL last week. He had every opportunity, 92% of snaps. That's the dream type of usage, but to your point, the efficiency just fell off a cliff. He was almost averaging 5 yards a carry. It's like a 4.82. Fell off yesterday. Like you saw some usage in the receiving game. I think the interesting thing also is Addison was like free number 3 on Instagram, and I'm like, What do you mean free Addison? What are you talking about? You're playing with Justin Jefferson. You're not him. So I was just like, all right, man. If you get traded, good luck, buddy, because this is a mess up for you anyways. All right, yeah, let's move on to another game that we had some anticipation for. The Eagles and the Bengals, and my goodness, that game got out of hands really fast. I think the clear difference between these two teams is the Eagles have a good defense. The Bengals do not have a good defense at all, and that showed up. With Jalen Hurts, he's just outside the top 6 quarterbacks right now on points per game basis. He's quarterback 6. Do you think, based on what he's been doing lately, where he had 3 rushing touchdowns yesterday, do you think he could finish the season as a top 3 quarterback in fantasy?
Absolutely. Yeah, we talked about this last week. I think it was on this very show that Jalen Hurts, we talked about, can he be the number 1? Yeah, possibly, but definitely a locked in number 3. We cited his schedule. It is phenomenal. Go look it up. But Jacksonville, Dallas over the next 2 weeks, he gets some other cupcake matchups in there. So I love Jalen Hurts. I love the schedule. I want every single Eagle. Jalen Hurts could be the QB1, but I think he's a top 3 locked in quarterback for you rest of the season.
Yeah, it's that rushing ceiling that really boosts him. Like, he doesn't even have to be the good of a passer. What works for him is like his completion percentage was 16 for 20, 236. Like, that's more than enough for him. Like, because he's gonna get the rushing touchdowns and stuff. I think him and Saquon are kind of like going back and forth with these touchdowns. They've kind of taken each other. Where you saw Saquon just didn't get in the end zone, he only got 12 points. That's kind of how it goes sometimes with fantasy. He was doing the Josh Jacobs where Josh Jacobs finally scored this week, but yeah, before that it just didn't happen. The Bengals, I think we have more questions coming out of this game for the Bengals. The offense was just not clicking as a whole. The defense was just got obliterated where it did not work out. Chase Brown's backfield, he had about 50% of snaps, but opportunities were like 2/3 to him compared to Zach Moss. Do you think he could finish the season as a top 15 running back? Because right now I think he's RB 27 on points per game basis. Where do you kind of view him moving forward?
Yeah, it's going to be really hard for Chase Brown. Like, I think he's the guy to own over Zach Moss, but Zach Moss is still heavily involved in areas we don't want him. We were big Zach Moss believers earlier in the offseason because of the fact that we knew Zach Moss would be involved. He's still involved. So I don't think they have any desire to get Chase Brown more involved. The problem is they're also not winning. Right, they're having some serious issues. When T. Higgins is on the field, this is a more dynamic offense. When T. Higgins is not on the field, it's a problem. The problem is it's not super dynamic in the run game. It's more of a pass game dynamic. They're a pass-first offense. And you know who doesn't line up on pass downs? Chase Brown. So that's really the issue for me. If he had that role, yes, he doesn't. It's still Zach Moss. It will continue to be Zach Moss when healthy. So no. Top 15, no. Top 24, sure.
Yeah. I think I'm on line with you with that. I think that's the best way for them, kind of, because like he's not going to get all the opportunity, and like if he's not getting all the snaps, it's really difficult. He could be more efficient, like similar to Aaron Jones. Like the efficiency is worse for Aaron Jones, but like he can kind of get there if he's playing that part-time role, which is what he's more than likely going to do. We can go to the next game, which is a very fun game. It was Baltimore versus Cleveland, and Jabo Willis, he brought him back, baby. Like they came out guns blazing. The offense raised up as a whole. I think it's I need to fix that because that is all over the place. Let's switch that for a second. So give me 1 second. Let's all that. I think this offense for Baltimore in particular did really well. They were just a tick lower than they normally do, and I think the bigger questions are about defense with them because their defense just got obliterated by Jameis Winston. Like it's like, all right, they did stop Nick Chubb, which is fine. Like the offense was pretty good. That's their strength. The pass defense is where they struggle a lot. I think for Baltimore moving forward, Derrick Henry is currently the RB1 on the season points per game basis, overall points. Do you think he can hold that title? Do you think in the second half of the season, Derrick Henry is going to do enough to be the RB1 in fantasy? Because he's just short of 22 points per game. It puts him in kind of like a decent spot to do it. I just don't think he's like locked in RB1, but I think it's a discussion.
Yeah, I don't think he's locked in, but you're assuming he can do it. He's only hasn't scored in one game this season. That was last week against Tampa. And actually that's not true because he scored through the air. So he just only not scored on the ground one time this season. He's scoring every single week. So that's going to keep him up there. But the other thing that we have to consider is, this Cleveland game we weren't expecting this to be a shootout. We didn't think Jameis was going to go scorched earth with Cedrick Tillman. At the same time, we know that this Baltimore secondary is atrocious and they're still dealing with injury on top of it. So you don't want a functional offense. Right, next week we see Denver going to come into Baltimore. That could be a bit of an issue in terms of just the way that Denver has been able to keep up on the offensive side of the ball. But yeah, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, the Chargers, Philadelphia withstanding. Then you got the Giants, Pittsburgh again. So these are not dynamic offenses. More often than not, we will have Derrick Henry game scripts or neutral game scripts. And I think he's going to see a lot more than just 11 carries, which is what he saw this week against Cleveland.
Yeah, he's similar. There's a few running backs like that, similar to Tank Bigsby with Jacksonville, right? When these games shift on them, just opportunities go away because they're not the best pass catcher in the world. Like you saw Justice Hill, he was a little bit involved in this game, not a lot, but really it was just Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, and even like Mark Andrews got back where it was National Tight End Day, and boy, the tight ends were good everywhere this week, which was very strange to watch. So if you had a tight end in fantasy, similar to David Njoku, you were loving life. To the Brown side of the field with Jameis Winston, his offense gets a massive boost across the board. And it's a lot of these guys were just dead in the water. I think they're viable. I think the most interesting piece is Charles Tillman on offense. Do you think, based on what we've seen, the 2 games that he's played with Jameis Winston, do you think he could be a wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season?
Well, Charles Peanut Tillman can't be a wide receiver 2, but Cedrick Tillman can be a wide receiver 2 because Cedrick Tillman has that opportunity. It's a really interesting question about Tillman because he was the hottest waiver wire pickup of the week, and he came in and absolutely on fire produced. He went from 12 targets a week ago to 9 targets this week, and he put the ball in the end zone twice against a really bad Ravens D. The problem here is the schedule. It's really concerning. Chargers, then a bye week. Saints, Steelers, twice, by the way. Broncos, Chiefs. So it gets really, really ugly schedule-wise for these guys. I just don't think, given those secondaries and the back ends that he's going to face, that we're going to know when exactly we can play Cedrick Tillman. That said, if you are a supreme contender, you're 6-1 or about to be 7-1, I guess. 6-2, even 5-3. I'm holding Cedrick Tillman. You can plug and play him if you need him through bye weeks and in the fantasy playoffs in the round right before, the semifinals. They get the Cincinnati Bengals, horrible in the secondary, and then the Miami Dolphins to wrap it up. And we saw the true Miami Dolphins on defense as well as on offense this week. So they're not going to be stopping anyone. I like Tillman in those weeks. Otherwise, I'm not sure where to play him. So I'm not locking him in my lineups now.
Yeah, I think he's more of a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver upside. The interesting thing is he didn't lead the team in targets. That was Elijah Moore coming back to life. Jerry Jeudy was viable. Like, I think Jerry Jeudy ran the most routes on the team, which is very interesting. But, like, they threw it 41 times. And this is the key in what we talked about with when we look back to Joe Flacco last year. It's the same scenario, right? Where they continually just chuck the ball a ton. And that's what they want to do with this team. So we'll see. I think a lot of these guys, you're probably going to flex them. I think Tillman's the best of the bunch. It's like him. Yes. It's Njoku and Chubb in the right game script because, like we talked about, the Ravens didn't give him 60 yards at all in the season of running back. He got 52. Like, he got real close, but it's like, he didn't get a touchdown. You're just disappointed if you started Nick Chubb. So overall, it's exciting offenses both teams looking for. They have a lot of good assets, so we'll go there. The next game was just a disaster of a game. The Titans came out guns blazing. They scored early, and boy, did it get out of hand after that. The Lions won 52-14. And my question is, we finally got a little bit of our guy that we hoped would work out. It has not worked out this well. Calvin Ridley. He put up 20 total fantasy points in this game. He had 10 receptions on 15 targets, 143 yards. This was the ideal matchup to play because the Lions just can't stop everybody in passing him. Is it time to buy or sell Calvin Ridley for you moving forward based off of this performance?
Sell. And I don't know who's buying. This was just, look, some people might be buying because with the DeAndre Hopkins departure, there was a lot of talk about who's it going to be. I went actually, and for cheap right before the game, picked up Nick Westbrook-Akine just in case he was the guy who broke out. And I really liked his usage in this game. But like Calvin Ridley was in the first quarter, he had like 8 of these targets, right? So half his targets for the game. So it was absolutely crazy and out of hand. By the end of the game, they were getting completely blown out. So needed to keep throwing with Mason Rudolph. The problem is the Titans, if they want to try to win games, the script does not say, have Mason Rudolph throw the ball 40 times, right? So I just think that's really going to be the issue. I don't think they're going to be getting blown out by New England next week. The Chargers play have a slower pace of play the following week. So no, I think Calvin Ridley's a sell. He's probably going to be someone who's going to be more boom bust. This is that like Gabe Davis profile who coincidentally took over for Calvin Ridley. in Jacksonville to fill the same role, and he's doing it gloriously. He had like one blow-up game and then nothing else. So no, Calvin Ridley's a big old fade for me. I don't care who's throwing the ball, whatever is happening there. The schedule is great, by the way. No,
Yes.
no, I'm Calvin Ridley. I'm out.
I'm with you. Like it's we'll see if he does it again. Maybe people have interest. It's just been such a disappointing. The usage, if you want to trust the usage on Ridley, it's been really good the past month. He's seen a ton of targets. He's been by far the best wide receiver. It's just up and down. So I don't mind rostering Calvin Ridley. If you want to like throw like a late or early third or somewhere in that range of dynasty, you can pick him up. Sure, because people are probably like looking to just get out based off of this game. So you see what you can get, because if he has this type of usage, there's going to be boom weeks like we talk about. It's going to be really up and down. Before we get to the Lions part of this, we have a question on we're going to share. Just traded Swift, Kupp, Richardson for Tyreek and Baker in one running back lead. Already have Kyron and CMC, and his other wide receiver is Amon-Ra. So yeah, that's a pretty good set of players. What do you think about this overall deal, Jeremy?
I mean, I want to like the deal, and I do like the deal. The problem is I need to personally take an L on DeAndre Swift. I don't know what the hell happened with him, but I was not expecting him to A, get this crazy amount of usage in Chicago with those other backs there, and then B, be able to take that usage and convert it into fantasy points. He had 0 targets last week. He's still currently the RB9 because he went 18 for 129 and 1 on the ground against Washington, who's been a decent unit up front. Not great, but decent. I mean, look, we know that there's weapons everywhere, but if DeAndre Swift can do this without getting any targets in the passing game, man, I'm just going to take the L on it. And that's really why I don't love this deal, because we have Kupp back now, but obviously the upgrade from Baker from Richardson is sweet. Tyreek, he can always be the wide receiver one. So no, I don't hate the deal. I think Swift, the cost might be a little steep, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah, the concerning thing is Kupp for me, because like I love both of these older wide receivers. I know Kupp wasn't the guy in the game, but he was still really good. He was still heavily used. Like everything is there. I know people are like probably a little disappointed because Puka came out and was like, "Hey, guess what? Puka Nacua, the former rookie wide receiver champion, is here. I am back, and this is life I live." Yeah, it really comes down to how you feel about Swift, and that's your entire point, right? He already has Kyrie, he has CMC. So clearly, I think you view Tyreek as a substantial upgrade over Kupp. And if that's the case, then yeah, you got what you wanted to do.
Agreed.
I personally don't, and that's my bigger question with this, because I have some concerns about the Miami offense as a whole. But yeah, like you have Amon-Ra, you got CMC coming back. Like this team is looking real strong. So as long as your tight end isn't just the tumbleweed rolling through the winds, you have somebody that's viable, right? Like you should be okay with this squad. Overall, yeah, I get the deal. It really just depends on what you do with Swift. And that Richardson stuff, like it's been a disaster. He's gonna continue starting, so like maybe they'll turn around. Somebody gets better for the Colts offense, but just kind of is what it is. Yeah. If Elspeth, I will say, if you want him for playoffs, yes, I'm much more confident in Mike Evans and Mark Cooper, but I would have a little bit of like caution with trading Mark Cooper just based off this one game, because like he has not been very good this year, and that's the bigger concern. We got all the snaps and everything in this game, and he just didn't do much of anything. So if you're okay with dealing with the injury concerns for Mike Evans, because we don't necessarily know when he's coming back, I wouldn't count on him coming back before playoffs, because it's basically they're talking about a month. And if they're talking about a month, it usually extends longer is the way I treat injuries. It's not going to be like what they talk about. They avoided IR, but like they have the bye week after that. It's probably week 13 you get it back, maybe. So it's like that's right before playoffs. So if you want him for playoffs, sure. If you're counting on like production from Cooper in the meantime, then I'm fine keeping Cooper. But yeah, like overall, I would just take this deal. Yeah, so I'm fine for doing it. He's 6-2.
So you're saying go get Evans?
Yeah, I prefer Evans. Like like in this scenario, this team they're 6-2. Like this is the type of move I'm fine making. If you're like a middling 4-4 team, you're 3-5 in that range. Like you're probably going to need Cooper, right? So it just really depends on if you trust Cooper or not. I have more concerns about Cooper than I do Evans. That's my thing.
Jesse, when did you say you think Evans is coming back? Which week?
Like my expectation, because he's gonna miss like 3 more weeks. They try to keep him off the IR. I'm trying. Their bye week, I think, is week 12. That's why I need to double check what their bye week is.
11,
week 11. Oh, bye week 11. So he could be back week 12. I don't know. I'm a little bit worried with this injury because it was pretty severe injury. That's my concern. So like, yeah. So like then, yeah, if you're never gonna start him, that's fine. Like take the deal.
Yeah.
I think you did
after the bye, Giants, Carolina, Vegas, Chargers, Dallas, Carolina. Like, go get
It's
Evans.
so good.
Go do it.
Yeah. Also, go by K-Dotton. K-Dotton
Yes.
is like the focal point of that offense.
Mhm.
We talked about this. Like, we'll get into this game a little bit, so we can talk about this. But yeah, like the guys that we expected to do good, the wide receivers, it's very TBD. I like McMillan's usage, but like we'll talk about it a little bit.
Yep.
Let's jump to the Lions side of the ball and talk about what are we doing with Sam LaPorta? He had 6 receptions. Sam LaPorta was back in our lives for a day where he was like, "Hey guys, I'm here." My main concern with Sam LaPorta is this was without Jameson Williams, so they went back to what they did last year, basically where they couldn't trust Jameson Williams. We're like, Sam LaPorta, hey, guess what? We like you. I thought that would potentially could happen. So Williams is out another week. He comes back the week after. What are you doing with Sam LaPorta once Jameson Williams comes back? Because that's my bigger question with Sam LaPorta.
Yeah, I Jameson Williams is the problem for Sam LaPorta, so we'll have to see. But I have a weird stat that I'm just trying to figure out how to phrase on the fly because I'm noticing it. Sam LaPorta has not caught a touchdown this year that was not touched by a running back before it was thrown to him. So he caught one on a flea flicker 3 weeks ago, and he caught one here from David Montgomery. So yeah, that's the concern. Is they're like they have to do a trick play to get Sam LaPorta wide open. It makes no damn sense. But here we are in 2024. So yeah, that's my concern with LaPorta is the usage probably won't continue with these 6 targets. It was a season high for him. He caught all of them. He's still good. He's still doing what he needs to do. There's just other mouths that need to get fed. And when you're doubling, Amon-Ra and Sam LaPorta, then Khalif Raymond is left wide open to scamper into the end zone willy-nilly, or you can just hand off the ball 40 times if you want to these 2 stud running backs. So it's ridiculous. Detroit is amazing. I expect them to make the Super Bowl, and that defense is tightening up. I don't know what to do with them. I think you have to plug them in and play them, but if you have a better option, like you probably wouldn't have a Mark Andrews, but if you had like a K-Dotton, I would start K-Dotton over LaPorta probably weekly at this point.
Yeah, I would too. Like just the usage is there. And to your point, I think with their defense, like this Titans team sucks. So I'm not willing to like fully trust it. We'll see moving forward. They have some interesting matchups coming forward. They have Green Bay, Houston, then they have like Jacksonville, who's kind of been up and down. But overall, you got Indianapolis. It's a fine schedule. Yeah, like I think they're more than likely going to be the NFC, or the champion out of the NFC. We will see. There's still a lot of good teams in that conference. I think certain teams can give them a bigger problem, like Philadelphia, if they match up against them. But overall, they look like number 1, number 2, maybe number 3. Like they're clearly going to win this division. Like I don't see anyone pushing them, and that's the biggest thing. So yeah, I'm excited for them, man. Like it's fun. They are like humming offensively. I think there was a stat there. It's the first time in NFL history a team has scored 5 touchdowns in less than 30 yards of offense, like on each drive. It's great because like he had 85 yards passing. He has 3 touchdowns. This is just nuts usage. Like it's just the wildest game. I don't know how this happened. So yeah, it's just a good time to be a Detroit Lions fan. I will say that coming off that they're 6-1, they're 11 life. The Titans, I don't know, man. Like sell Calvin Ridley, sell everybody, sell Tony Pollard, get anything you can because this season's completely bust.
It is. Go get Tony Pollard. Get him for cheap. I'm absolutely in on the Tony Pollard train. His schedule the last 4 weeks is Jacksonville, Cincy, Indy, Jacksonville. Go buy him for cheap. I bought him for expensive a couple weeks ago, just in preparation for that. But yeah, Mason Rudolph is somehow worse than Will Levis, not in reality, but for fantasy. He is kind of supporting these options, but this team is bad. And if the defense can't get it together and find their motivation, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I was telling the Tennessee Titans to sell Tony Pollard. Fantasy wise, like
fair.
I'm a hard time trusting this offense down the stretch because you know what they're going to do once the season. It's already over, but like what they're going to kind of shift, and if that happens, like hey, Tajay Spears, you want to get some more run? That's what worries me with this offense. If they do that, that's the bigger concern. But overall, these 2 teams are on completely different sides of the spectrum. We'll go to the Texans and the Colts game, and this game was just pretty ugly, I will say. It has not clicked for the Texans like this entire year offensively. I don't know what it's going to be for them to finally like get it. There was like a very crucial turnover down near the goal line, which kind of like made this game close. The Colts returned it. Turns out he got touched when he returned it for a touchdown. So they set it off. Like the Colts ended up losing 20-13. I will say, what Do you think Tank Dell is the wide receiver to own the rest of the season for the Texans? Because he's really the only healthy wide receiver they have with the big three. We just saw Stephon Diggs. Looks like it's a significant knee injury. He's going to be out a while. Nico Collins is coming back in a few weeks. It's still a few weeks to go with him. So for you, is Tank Dell the guy you want to have rest of the season, or do you still trust Nico?
No. Like, do I trust Nico? Sure. Yeah. Tank Dell only had 4 targets in this game. Diggs went out, about halfway through. His usage is there. He's seeing a majority of the snaps. He's running a bunch of the routes. He did score a touchdown in this game. He's only earning roughly 4 targets in his 7 games. He has 4 games with 4 targets. That's just not going to get it done for Tank Dell. I don't know what happened to the days where he was getting 8, 9 targets a game from last season. Those are long gone. They occur sporadically this season. Without Diggs, it should be Tank Dell. He should be the focal point. I don't trust it. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know if Dalton Schultz is more involved, but the real issue here for Tank Dell is Joe Mixon continues to eat. His touch share is absolutely ridiculous. He's seeing 25 to 30 touches a game, Joe Mixon, and he's good. And this offensive line is really good. And they are, and the defense can get after the passer. So, the Texans need to turn it around a little bit and win some more games. But, I think they're happy running their offense through Joe Mixon and not Tank Dell, sadly.
Yeah. Joe Mixon currently leads in points per game. He's at 22 points per game. That's including the game he left early, went out with an injury. I'll just gonna run these down with Joe Mixon's, and it's incredible.
Missed 3 games.
He's missed 3. So he went out in week 2. Week 2 is where he got injured. He was humming. So week 1. 26 points per game. 26. Week 6, 27 points. Week 7, 26 points. Week 8, 23 points. When he's been healthy on the field, his usage is out of control. Like, I think there's a case you can make for Joe Mixon being the RB1 in fantasy. What that does, though, is it brings the entire offense down because the passing game is struggling. Like, they can't figure out. Mixon's the one thing. He just, like, we talked about this, him shifting teams and, like, changing the offensive structure that he's in. The fact they do not play, like, Cincinnati shotgun, like the heavy shotgun approach, like, it's so much better for them and Mixon. Like, I think Mixon is, like, the ideal guy you want chiefly for fantasy. Obviously, in redraft, he's going to cost a lot. But in Dynasty, like, if you can get Mixon at all, like, on a team that's just, like, selling the farm, go get Mixon because he looks spectacular in this offense.
Yes, sir.
For the Colts side of the field, I mean, it's just rough. We did get some Josh Downs in our life. Josh Downs did come back. He was really good in this game where he put up 22 fantasy points, over 100 yards. He had 4 receptions on 9 targets. He did have 1 broken play reception, but still outside of that, he caught 4 more. Can we even trust Josh Downs moving forward? Can he be a flex play with, and as long as Anthony Richardson is on the field, is he a top 36 wide receiver for you?
Yes. But can we trust him? I don't think so. Look, I think he's QB proof. It's not about trusting Josh Downs. He's phenomenal. It's about trusting Anthony Richardson to get him the ball. 9 targets in this one, just 4 receptions. The last few times he had 9 targets, he had 8 receptions and 7 receptions. And that's because Joe Flacco was throwing him the football. This broken play, like you said, it was damn near 70-yard broken play that Downs scored on. I mean, that's not going to happen every week. Houston struggles in the secondary. So no. Sadly, you can't trust Josh Downs with Anthony Richardson not able to get him the ball and deliver it accurately, even on the shorter routes.
Yeah, this game snowballed for Richardson. A.D. Mitchell screwed him multiple times in this game. Yep. He had a ball, touchdown, go off his hands, doing a couple of things. Pittman made a couple of mistakes. Like, these wide receivers just set him out for failure. And Anthony Richardson was like, I can't overcome that, guys. You guys screwed me. So then he just started going haywire with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this was a disaster. So it started out well. Yeah. It deteriorated rather quickly for Richardson.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, I think he was at one point, he was 1 for 9 or 1 for 10. And he had the 83-yard completion. And then, like, outside of that, it was just nothing. So, it's wild. I know they're going to keep starting because their seasons, they're 4-4. Like, they're a borderline playoff team. It's just kind of you got to figure out what you have with Richardson. So, be prepared for a bumpy month, I would say. See how it goes. If he doesn't show any signs of improvement, they'll probably go to Flacco to make the playoff push. But it's going to be an up and down season. It's unfortunate, man. Like, he only had 6 carries in this game. That's the disappointing thing. Like, if you're going to trust him, like, just let him run, do those things. But he also got tired in the game on 3rd down where he had that massive run. Then he called for him to come out. Like, I thought he was hurt. He said he was just tired. And I was like, oh my gosh, the vibes are down bad. I'll say about this team.
Jesse, 10 of 24 against Miami last week. 10 of 32 this week. Crazy.
Dude, he's He's sub 50%. He's 59 for 133. It's like not even close to his percentage. This is real bad. I don't know. I guess it's so it's horrific. So I don't know what Sykin needs to do, but he's supposed to be an offensive wizard. You need to figure something out, Sykin, to make his life so much easier because they are not doing that right now with those weapons. And they have good pieces. Like we see down Jeff Pittman. Like they have Pierce. Like they have decent enough offense. It's clearly not clicking. But hey, they're in the playoff contention, so we'll see. Be prepared for an up and down season. I will say Taylor had 20 carries. Like he looked good in this game. Like you know what you get out of Jonathan Taylor. He's a locked in RB1 moving forward. It's kind of is what it is.
Oh yeah.
All right, the next game we had Green Bay beating Jacksonville 30-27 in an entertaining game. I think the bigger question is involving Malik Willis in this offense and how that's going to function because it seems like it's a pretty severe groin injury. Haven't heard anything today on this groin injury, but he could miss this matchup coming up. So I think for the Green Bay offense, that's the more concerning thing. With him expected to miss time, how do you kind of view this Packers offense? Are you trusting any of the pass catchers, or is it just strictly just Josh Jacobs?
No, it's Josh Jacobs only. And Emmanuel Wilson as well, right? Yep. He got a little bit of run, but Josh Jacobs, I think the last game that Malik Willis played, touched the ball, he had like 32 carries, right? So Emmanuel Wilson is going to eat in. Jacobs is going to be a high volume guy, just like we like, and his touchdown regression is coming. We've seen that happen the last couple of weeks. That will continue. So yeah, I'm riding Josh Jacobs and nobody else here in Green Bay until
the week 3 game was weird. He only had like 14 carries, 15 touches. Like it was strange. Like I think that game against Tennessee was just an ugly game, and they kind of went in from it. To your point, yeah, like you know what you're getting out of Josh Jacobs. The offense is really up or down. Like this whole offense in general, like I was really bullish on Jayden Reed. There's not like a high volume target earner on this entire offense. Like it's split across the board. Like we had Dubs with 6 targets, Christian Watson 6 targets. Nobody really did anything. Jayden Reed has not been the efficiency monster he was earlier in the season, so he's clearly taking a step back. We'll see how that works out for him. On the flip side, for Jacksonville, Brian Thomas Jr. is currently the rookie wide receiver 1. He's wide receiver 7 on a points per game basis. Do you think he could hold that? Because we had Marvin Harrison Jr. show out today. We have Malik Neighbors still like producing points wise. Do you think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to finish the season as the highest scoring rookie wide receiver, or do you think it's going to be one of the other two?
I don't know. We'll see about the chest injury. He's going for MRI on his ribs. Does that keep him out? Maybe not. He doesn't necessarily need those ribs to catch those long bombs from Trevor Lawrence. But Trevor Lawrence is looking to him earlier and often, and typically at the expense of everybody else, which is great. I mean, you hit this nail on the head early in the offseason that Brian Thomas was brought in to be the wide receiver, the number 1 target. He's going to be the number 1 target. I said, no, it's Christian Kirk. Wrong. I said, no, it's Evan Ingram. Wrong. I said, maybe it's Travis Etienne. Wrong. It's Brian Thomas Jr., and he's absolutely crushing. Can he be the rookie wide receiver 1? I'm going to say no. He's definitely top 3. I think he's probably finishes top 2. But yeah, it's gonna be close. He's got the potential for sure.
Yeah, I think he has a very good chance. I'm just worried about the injury. That's the bigger concern. If he's not gonna be playing, like he's gonna lose that battle just because the other guys are playing. Yeah, like Ingram's been decent, but the whole Kirk stuff, Kirk's out for the year now. Like, I looked at their starting wide receivers for next week. They have like nobody. Like it's legit. You're not gonna recognize these names. Yeah, it's like Parker Washington. You got a dude named freaking Tim Jones. I don't even know who Tim Jones is. Like I feel like I know a lot of players.
I don't know.
He had a reception in this game. It's gonna be bad. So we'll see. It's rough for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've been very up or down. They are what are they on the season? They are like 2-6. Like just sell the farm, man. Get out of there. It's bad news. The entertaining game with the Miami Arizona game. Arizona wins 28-27. Miami falls to freaking 2-5 now, 2-6. Like it's not good for Miami.
It's bad.
Arizona, Kyler Murray kind of did some magic. That's kind of what Kyler Murray does. He does this thing where he's like, all right, guess what? Let me run around, let me scramble, we'll do that for you. So I'm trying to find the question because I've lost my place here. So give me a second as I saw. There we are. I think for Miami, are there any Miami Dolphins you don't want to own? And I think clearly it's what you got. All the guys scored, but is there anybody in this offense like you're scared to have on your team? And this could even be the 3rd running back on the team. I don't know why I'm not. Where is he? There he is. Jalen Wright, like him. Is there anybody in this offense you don't want to own?
No, I mean maybe Tua. Right, Tua has shown that look, he's not a running quarterback. We know that when he does, he gets concussed. So he's going to want to curb that even more. 28 of 38 for 234 in this game, with just 1 touchdown. Those touchdowns will come for Tua because Tyreek is going to break 1, Waddle is going to break 1. But no, Tua simply being back there and being a functional NFL quarterback elevates this entire offense, allows Mike McDaniel to do whatever he wants to do, and allows the plays that he schemed up to work. And the running game is buffeted by the passing game. We saw these two running backs go off this week. They're going to need, in future weeks, because this one was close. They barely lost, right, to Arizona.
Yeah.
In future weeks, they play Buffalo next week. They play the Rams in 2 weeks, and their defense cannot handle those offenses. So they're going to need to air it out. Tua is capable of that. Tyreek and Waddle can take it to the house. So I want all of these guys. Tyreek is your wide receiver 1. Waddle is low-end wide receiver 2, flex play weekly. Mostert is a flex play weekly because he always has the potential to score multiple touchdowns like he did last week. And Achane is your locked-in RB1. We are back. Let's go.
Yes, sir, baby. This is what we talked about yesterday's show. Like I mentioned that Achane has seen 7 or 6 targets in every game Tua has started.
Yep.
He saw 8 targets in this game. Like if he gets this usage, like you're getting the efficiency monster. Oh yeah, he's back to being 9-7 yards on a carry. Like 10 carries, 9.7 yards per carry. Like that's just absurd stuff. So the offense, hey, look at a good quarterback will do things for you. You know what you're getting out of the Cardinals. I think is more interesting because the way this question is phrased. Like, do you think Kyler Murray is a league-winning quarterback? I'll take it a step further. Do you think he could be a top 4 quarterback the rest of the season? Because he's QB 7, I think, right now. So he has a chance. Do you think he could jump into that truly elite tier on a points per game basis?
I don't. But what I was thinking when I crafted this question was how juicy their schedule looks from week 14, Seattle, New England, Carolina, and the Rams to wrap up, especially in the fantasy playoffs, those last 2 games against Carolina and against Los Angeles. I think Kyler has the potential to win you your league, not just because he runs around like a madman, but also because he has those receivers, right? Trey McBride is Mr. Reliable. He's there every week. He's the tight end 1. He's your tight end 1 from the beginning of the season. And, if he had a few more touchdowns to his name, he'd be right there with some of those other guys. I think as it stands right now, he's like, tight end 4, 5. So, I mean, he's right there with those guys. And then, but the schedule is beautiful. Seattle twice. That's not going to be a problem for Kyler. We saw Seattle get absolutely decimated by Buffalo. Unfortunately, that defense just doesn't have it. They never had it. I think Kyler helps you win your fantasy league this year. And if you don't have him, try and get him for peanuts. Trade Caleb Williams now in redraft for Kyler Murray. Maybe you get a little bit something extra on top. I don't know. Yeah,
I think you just have to survive these next 2 weeks, right? Because it's the Bears and Jets. Like that's the whole thing we're talking about. Some of the Jets schedule we'll bring it to in a second, where it's like a really nice second half. That's what you're talking about. I'm with you. Like I want to just invest in this offense moving forward because if Kyler they got 300 yards passing, like that's the first time all year he's hit 300 yards passing. He was efficient. He did really good. If that is the case, this offense, you're going to see a lot of these guys raise their floor and potentially hit their ceiling. So yeah, I like that move with Kyler. I love Kyler. Like he's just a little minion running around back there doing everything for you. So
he is.
Let's go to the Jets Patriots game and your Pats. They took it down. It was like, all right, man, we'll see this interesting. So both these teams are 2-6 right now. The Pats win 25-22. Drake May got injured in this game, suffered a weird concussion. He came out. Jacoby Brissett did enough to guide this team down. And I think the more interesting question, which you phrase, is Rhamondre, are you buying, are you holding, are you selling Rhamondre Stevenson?
Well, first of all, I have mixed emotions about the Patriots winning because that's our second win on the season. We no longer have a stranglehold on the 101, which I would love to have, like the best tackle locked in the game or the best player, who cares, or trade it down. But we got Tennessee coming up next week. We could beat Tennessee. Crap,
That's the problem.
in a lost season. I want these guys to. But look, if we're talking about Rhamondre Stevenson, I mean, we locked him up to a long-term deal in the offseason. He scored 22 fantasy points and is currently the RB4 on the week against the Jets unit that should not have been that bad against the run. But Rhamondre is doing it all. When he's healthy, he's the clear RB1 on this team. He's utilized as such. He's utilized in the passing game no fewer than 3 targets in every game, but 1. I don't remember if he left with injury on that one, but no fewer than 3 targets in every game but 1 this season. You're buying him for the stretch run, even with an offense that is like poor and doesn't function well because he's always used. And once Drake May comes back, the offense at least is a little bit more functional. Yeah, and the schedule is decent.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like the early season usage, the first 2 weeks, those were really good for Rhamondre. It fell apart because the offensive hit. This is the thing I was talking about with Drake May, like with how good Drake May is, and obviously Drake May did not guide them for the win in this game, but like he clearly has raised the offensive floor and raises it to another level. Like they're gonna win some games and they're gonna be like scrappy, and this is the thing. Like the Jets team just seems just a disaster. Their vibes are so bad. They fire Robert Saleh. It turns out Robert Saleh was not the problem. It's Aaron Rodgers and his cuckoo all nonsense going on over there. Yeah. So they got Adams back. It really has not made a difference at all with the team. Where their team's at 2-6, like they're unlikely to make the playoffs. What happens to the fancy weapons? Because like I don't know. My thought process is I don't think they're gonna ever gonna bench Rodgers because like that just seems like just a disaster of a situation where they're just gonna play it out to the last string. Their schedule's tough. Like I don't know. What do you think happens to these guys?
I think Rodgers comes back next season. I think he's just going to be unsatisfied and trying to do it. The problem is the limitations of Rodgers physically now, but with the fact that the offensive line is not holding up against pressure. That's really the issue with me. You can say all you want about the play calling. It's been bad. You can say all you want about Aaron Rodgers. He hasn't been, helping his own cause and doing things the right way and even being able to put it all together physically on the field. All of that's true. But the fact is they can't protect Aaron Rodgers, and it's causing problems for this entire offense. When the passing game doesn't get going, Breece Hall gets stuffed. The only thing that's been working for this team is dumping the ball down to Breece Hall and kind of just throwing it out to these elite wide receivers and having Garrett Wilson make ridiculous catches. So, the talent is there, but if they can't protect Rodgers, it's going to be a problem. Going forward, they're not going to make the playoffs at this point. This was a gimme win. And do they shut these guys down? Probably not. So I think it's okay. And their fantasy playoff schedule for the Jets is actually good for fantasy production. We'll see what happens, but it's not going to be as good as we thought it was because I don't think the playoff push and motivation is there for the Jets this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. It just seems like it's broken. The bigger problem I think is like the way he plays, what I talked about earlier this year, like we talked about this, is he plays like it's 2008. He plays slow. They don't pace. They don't do motion. They've started. Todd Downing did the weird thing with Breece Hall where he was the RB1 the first couple weeks. Then he like went away from it and he trusted Braylon Allen. I don't know why he decided to do that. Braylon Allen was not good in this game. He had 12 carries for 32 yards. Like that's just. Meanwhile, Breece Hall was super efficient once again. I'm like, dude, just get Braylon Allen off the field. He's not Breece Hall. Like I understand it, but the offense is just struggling, and that line was paper tiger built, man. Like if they suffer some injuries, So the Jets, unfortunately, sorry Jets fans, it's going to be another long season. We will see. Hopefully they get some line. They run it back. It's not good. Let's go to the Saints Chargers games. Oh, the Saints. With Spencer Rattler, it's clearly Spencer Rattler is not starting NFL quarterback. Okay, let's do this quickly. 8-23, they lost. With the Chargers, I think my bigger question is with Olave and McConkey, who do you prefer rest of season between these two teams? Because I think McConkey had best game of his career. Like he was really good in this game. So are you trusting McConkey in that offense even when he had 6 targets, or Chris Olave, who had 14 targets, looked good for the first time all season?
I want both. I don't care. I think it was interesting between Spencer Rattler and then when Haener came in. Haener was actually targeting Olave more, and Olave was able to put his production together with Haener. Even though Spencer Rattler was talking about this offense is designed, we need to funnel the ball to Olave. He did, but he wasn't as nearly as effective as Haener was doing that. We're just waiting on Derek Carr to come back. So I want both of these guys. If I'm forced to choose, it's really tough. I think I'll go with McConkey only because that running game and the way that they are operating in Los Angeles has proven that it's going to create opportunities for McConkey down the field. I think Olave is the more talented guy. I think McConkey for fantasy is the guy you want because he'll have steadier production week to week.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's kind of what you get. Like Olave's the ceiling. Like McConkey is much more of like a safe floor play. And the Chargers offense just looks solid. It's respectable. They're not going to pass a lot in 30 pass steps, but yeah, I think that's the good way to go about that. We'll see with Derek Carr if he does come back, but yeah, the Saints, similar to the Jets, this season looks broken. It started out super promising, but the injuries have just zapped this offense completely. The line's a shell of itself, like the skill position players, everything's kind of going against them. And the defense just isn't that good anymore. So I'm with you. Let's jump to the Buffalo and Seattle game. And we don't got to hit on this game too much because, boy, it was rough. Let me tell you. There was not much good for the Seahawks moving forward this game. I think for the Seahawks moving forward, Are you buying, selling, or holding this offense as a whole without DK Metcalf until he comes back? Because without DK Metcalf, they clearly were missing him. Like, they could not do anything. Like, JSN didn't look great. Tyler Lockett didn't look great. Geno Smith was under an insane amount of pressure. What are you kind of doing with the Seahawks offense moving forward for the next few weeks?
Yeah, let's remember that Geno Smith is always under a same amount of pressure.
Yes.
But Buffalo has been really good. Ed Oliver has been, healthy and back. AJ Epinesa is getting opportunities on the outside in Buffalo and winning consistently. And so this Seahawks offensive line was no match for Buffalo. You know who there'll be no match for next week? The Los Angeles Rams. So it's going to continue up front where these kind of young pass rushers or any decent pass rushers are continuing to be able to threaten these Seahawks and Geno Smith. That's not Geno's fault. But without DK Metcalf, he just doesn't have the other receivers running free because they don't have to worry about DK. So yeah, it's a problem for the Seahawks. It's a problem for the running game. I want Walker to be able to kind of get loose and do well, but no, this offense needs DK Metcalf, unfortunately.
Yeah, like he's the clear wide receiver one. We talked about this in the offseason. Yeah. Like, I like JSN, but clearly DK does stuff the other guys can't do. We had another Keon Coleman showing. Keon Coleman looks good. Can we trust him moving forward? I think we kind of can. I don't know the level of trust we're going to put into it because he had 70 yards, touchdown, 5 receptions. He looked good. Are you trusting Keon Coleman in your lineups moving forward?
I think you have to. Man, he looks so good going up and getting that ball. I mean, and they went back to him repeatedly in the red zone with that play, but he connected on that ball in the end zone where he just snatched it away from, I don't know if it's Witherspoon or Reek is Wolin, I think, because the previous play, Wolin was in his face saying, "Oh, you're not getting that all day," and he swatted away from him. And the next play, Keon Coleman just mosses him on the other side of the field. So, that guy has shown in Coleman that he can do this on a weekly basis, and they're starting to trust him more and more to do it on a weekly basis. We saw Josh Allen have trust in Gabe Davis to do this sort of thing. Keon Coleman is a monster and way better at contested catches than Gabe Davis. Gabe was more stretch the field kind of guy. So, can he do it on a weekly basis? Yeah, I think so. I can trust him.
Yeah, this is kind of obviously I don't want to compare him to Brian Thomas Jr., but the way that these guys play these roles offensively, they're both better players than Gabe Davis. That's clear. Yeah, and they need that field stretcher. I personally want Keon Coleman to more be a slot plus player for them. I think that works really well. And I know Khalil Shakir is fun and stuff, but if you have Keon Coleman, this big bodied guy who can give you some yak across the middle of the field and stretch it downfield, that really helps. Amari Cooper was probably really disappointing. Him and Kenneth Walker were the two bigger disappointments in this game. I don't know what happened with Walker in this game. He didn't get the usage at all. So the Seahawks were just kind of 9 carries, 12 yards, didn't do much of anything. So it was rough. So we'll see. We'll see moving forward how these goes. But Buffalo looks like one of the best teams in the NFL. They've looked like that all year with a few hiccups across the board. But when they're clicking, they are a terror. So Buffalo, I might be them and Baltimore, the two teams I think give the Chiefs the biggest problem. I still don't think they'll beat them, but they give them a shot.
So Jesse, we have this question. Then I got to dip out, but let's answer this question here from Augusto first. What are you thinking with this team? The question is going for Barkley, and he wants a wide receiver and a running back. I assume this is dynasty. What are you comfortable giving up given this roster to go get Saquon?
That dynasty is really tough because you're buying into an older depreciating asset, and I know Saquon's really good for you. It's just a whole value game. If we're talking redraft, I'm sending pretty much any of these guys. I would be fine because you kind of have the good squad. You have Hall, Kamara. I don't really necessarily know if you need him because what you're doing is you're taking Saquon and you're basically to get him in this type of deal and redraft. You got to move Neighbors or London type deal. I don't think you want to give your running backs. Maybe you do. I would move Kamara plus to get Saquon. Mm-hmm. I think that's the easiest move for you because you still have Dobbins, right? Hunt. Yes, Hunt. You could package it because you're probably going to package a lot of these guys. Maybe if you do Kamara plus Deontay, and then I don't know if that gets it done. Is the problem. So
but let's think about this though. He's 1-7, right? So he's going to want an asset that's, Deontay has the potential to, maybe you can convince him that Deontay is going to get traded, or he's going to be there long term. He's still only 27, I think. Deontay Johnson.
He's 20. He's 28, I think.
Okay. Well, yeah, but he's still viable. The problem is you don't have a lot of youth, and there's no way in hell I'm giving him Bowers. So
yes,
it's really tough. Neighbors, London, I really want to keep those guys.
Yeah.
I
if
don't know.
it's redraft, I'm fine sending either of those guys for Saquon. Like I think
Yeah.
the floor with Saquon's higher and the ceiling is also higher. Like if it's redraft, this is a different ballgame. I'll basically sell anyone. I think Breece Hall is the most interesting of your pieces. Obviously, with that offense, it's really up or down. Saquon's been a lot safer. So if this is dynasty, though, I'm just personally how I manage. I'm not selling neighbors. I'm not selling London. I'm not selling Breece Hall, right? So that puts you in a very weird spot where you're gonna have to do a first plus, like one of your your assets, right? So if this is redraft, I'm fine moving all the pieces. I don't care. I'll take Saquon. Like I don't know who I would prefer over Saquon, and the closest guy is maybe Breece. Like, and I still think I'd take Saquon over Breece, right? I think he's the most valuable asset in redraft. If it's dynasty, how are you going about doing this? Is there any way you do this?
I don't know. Like you said, I think you got to go picks if you're in dynasty. Let's assume you don't have any picks in dynasty. I think you do something like a Chase Brown, Dobbins, or Chase Brown, Chubb, Deontay. Like you could put 3 of these guys together and potentially equal a Barkley. Assuming he's just tanking for next year, you give him guys that are relatively the same age that have the opportunity. But yeah, I'm not selling London or Neighbors or Hall or
That's
Powers.
The hard part, right?
So if you're not doing that, maybe you just don't go get Barkley, I guess.
If it's redraft, I'm just going to do Kamara and then sell Deontay, see if that gets me to Saquon. Like that seems like the easiest kind of like you give him 2 pieces and he's probably going to want that because the 1-7 team has basically 0 depth. I have a few of those teams where you look at the roster like this team just sucks, right? So it's like all right, I'll just give you multiple assets. But I would just communicate with this user, like see what they want, like the pieces that they want. Form a deal off of that if they want to. But I would either form it around Hall or Kamara because those are your 2 most valuable running backs, and then I would add a plus on one of those guys. Pick the wide receiver. You could do Ridley, pick Deontay. I mean, I don't think Jennings has really any value, but possibly do that. Pick one of those 3 and like add them into the DLC where it gets you. That's you never know.
Right.
You shoot it and go from there.
I gotta go, man.
All right, man. I'll close this out.
Later.
Take care. Let's do this. Let's go solo real quick. All right, so we are going to go on to our next game. So, sorry, this is running a little bit long. That's what we do on this here show, folks. Like, that's how kind of we are. So, we are going to go to our next game on the field where we had the Carolina Panthers getting the baked breed off of them by the Denver Broncos. Interesting enough, Bryce Young drove him downfield, scored a touchdown early with Xavier Legette, and then, shockingly, it did not work out well for them. So, my question is, can we, like, do you think Bo Nix can bring the Broncos to the promised land? No, like I'm not a big Bo Nix guy. I'm curious to see how it goes for him. He looked really good this game. This is the Carolina Panthers, though. This is by far the best he's looked all season, right? He was 28 for 37, 284 yards, 3 touchdowns. Didn't run a lot because he didn't need to. That's the key here. He's run a lot on the season. He has a lot more yards like the week before. He had 75 yards. Week 6, he had 61 yards. This game, because the Carolina can't generate any pressure, that's good. Looking forward to week 9 against Baltimore and Kansas City. They generate pressure. He's going to run a lot more. So if you're looking for a rushing prop, I would take that. I think he's a viable quarterback too, with weekly quarterback 1 upside because of the rushing floor. We see it with these rushing quarterbacks. The floor is higher and the ceiling is higher. If they hit if they pass like this is where Bo Nix becomes a QB1. I don't think he's good enough, for the skill position around him is good enough. That's really going to be the case. But like Sutton came back to life. We had a little bit of life from Devon Vele. Troy Franklin boomed last week. He busted this week. It kind of is what it is, right? On the Carolina side, Hubbard versus Brooks. What I'm starting to get more concerned about is what the head coach, Dave Canales, said earlier in the week. They asked him if they might just hold Brooks out the season. He said it's possible. We didn't think that was going to happen. Because the season is so lost for Carolina, there really isn't much they can get going. They have Bryce Young. Bryce Young did enough where you're like, okay, the offense did some things, because we were wondering if they were going to score double-digit points in this game. Obviously, it fell apart for Bryce Young. There's a lot of question marks for him. He's clearly not the guy. We'll see where they go moving forward because, it is what it is. I still prefer Brooks, but it's getting closer and closer. Chuba, the one thing about this game is that Miles Sanders had 7 receptions. If that's the case, then yeah, you're going to want Jonathan Brooks, because Chuba Hubbard is not getting that receiving upside. It just limits his floor and ceiling, because in this game, he didn't get double-digit points because he only had, doing the math right here, like 70 yards, no touchdowns. That's unfortunate. And yeah, the one thing I'll say is if you're in Dynasty, stash Jalen Coker, because Jalen Coker showed some things. They need pieces. I know people have talked about a lot in the offseason. So if Jalen Coker's on your waiver wire, go get him. I'm looking at Dynasty leagues right now. He is rostered on 36% of rosters. So not a lot of rosters. You can get him. But overall, there's not much hope in Carolina moving forward. You need them to move that away from them. Let's go to our next game. we are looking at, let's have that. We're going to go to the Commanders and the Bears, and this game was ugly. Commanders win on the last second, miracle touchdown, Hail Mary. Is Jayden Daniels the MVP for 2024? Yeah. I mean, if you drafted him, he's quarterback 3. He's been incredible. He's everything you could have wanted. Where you got Jayden Daniels in drafts, he was late in drafts. Like, he was going in Caleb Williams range. He's just been incredible. Everything, he looks awesome. The offense looks good. They're not having the concerns that Chicago has on the other side of the ball because he's 21 for 38, 326 yards. Obviously, a few of that is boosted by that 70-yard Hail Mary. But still, 8 carries, 52 yards. He gives you the rushing floor on top of that, too. So he just looks incredible. I will say yes. If you're talking about most impactful players from where you drafted them, like a WAR perspective, Jayden Daniels is clearly one of those guys, if not the highest, because of what he does. For the Chicago side, it's just tough with Chicago. Is Caleb Williams bound for regression? I will say yes. This is more of like what we're worried about. He does get Arizona this week coming forward. It should be a little bit better. But, man, this offense played against a suspect defense. I know Washington looks a little bit better. But, dude, 10 for 24, 131 yards. There's some regression coming from Caleb Williams. I'm worried because we have New England, we have Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, San Francisco kind of rounded out towards getting into the playoffs. It's not the best stretch of the world. You expected him to play a lot better than he did. That's a gross completion percentage. Not many yards per pass attempt either. It's just all across the board. He did run it 10 times, and that's kind of what saved his bacon. But the turnovers, the lack of touchdowns really don't give you the ceiling. But the fact he scrambled 10 times, I think that's something to keep an eye on. Because if you look at his carries per game, he already has 35 rushing attempts, and I think that was going into this game if I'm doing the math. Yeah, so we'll see, but he's scrambling a lot and doing pretty well. Like, Swift did good. Romo Dunze actually out-targeted DJ Moore. So this is something to keep an eye on with Romo Dunze. I think he's going to progress and be the guy in that offense that he could push them. So we will see. It was just a fun, entertaining game. The defense is really strong. So we'll see where that goes from there. Let's go to our next game, Kansas City and Vegas. Vegas was entertaining, but Mahomes finally did double digits. And the question is, does Patrick Mahomes have multiple touchdowns ever again? The thing is, they just love Kareem Hunt. So they give it down to the goal line, touchdowns. It is what it is. This was probably the game to start Mahomes. He was fine. He got you 20 fantasy points for the first time all season. Still, looking right now, he is the quarterback 20, which is just, I can't believe we're having that conversation about Patrick Mahomes. He gets Tampa Bay coming up, and then he gets Denver, Buffalo. Then he gets Carolina and Vegas again. So it's going to be up or down for Mahomes. He's a quarterback. Like, I view him as more as like a quarterback 3, but he's a quarterback 2, like a back-end quarterback 2 for each and every week. You could play him, but the floor is lower, the ceiling is lower, just because they don't have the explosive element on offense. We're looking again. 27 completions, only 262 yards. It's not great. You want to see it at a higher number, because if you're looking at yards per attempt, he had 38 attempts, so he's well below where you want to be. 6 carries, it's just still not clicking all the way. And when you're running an offense that's built around the 2018 fantasy all-stars, like you have freaking Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce, DeAndre Hopkins, all these guys that goes to Juju Smith-Schuster. The nice thing was Xavier Worthy showed up, where he led the team in receptions and targets. He did get a touchdown. It's not really efficient, but at least they're featuring Xavier Worthy. It's going to click at some point. It will be fine. It's just really up or down for him. On the flip side, do we think both Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers can coexist? It's very difficult, but yes. The problem is, like we saw in this game for Bowers, he had 5 receptions for 58 yards. Jacoby Myers, 6 receptions for 52 yards. The offense just isn't going to pass for that many yards. So we love Brock Bowers. Jacoby Myers, I like Jacoby Myers. I think he's a wide receiver 3 with a weekly wide receiver 2 upside. He's going to get the targets, and that's the thing that's really good for him. But that, it could fall apart just based on the offense. So we'll see. I don't know why that's not working. Anyways, so that's that. So that covers that game. I think for Vegas, you don't really want the running backs. The wide receivers, they're not good outside of that. Trey Tucker did a little bit, but overall, it's just not great. Let's go to talk about the Dallas coming back to make this a barn burner. This game was an absolute blowout. The 49ers really just gave it to them, and then somehow they figured it out. They come all the way back. So I will say, for the 49ers, do we think Ricky Pearsall could be in a weekly option in flex? I'm going to say yes. The one thing that we liked about Ricky Pearsall, and that I liked in particular, is a really good man to coverage beater. They do not have that on offense right now. Deebo Samuel is very much a zone wide receiver. He wins against zone. Ricky Pearsall is the man. He's the guy that goes man. And what's interesting is he did the Deebo thing. He had 1 carry for 39 yards. Had 4 receptions, 4 targets in this game. It was fine. He was not the featured piece, but without CMC, with Ayuk out for the year, this offense really consolidates around the guys, because Garendo's not much of a pass catcher. Jordan Mason's not much of a pass catcher. And unfortunately, Jordan Mason's season is pretty much over at this point. So if you had Jordan Mason, tip your cap to him. He did really well for you. But only 6 carries, 18 yards. His shoulder injury. If you had him, I know it was disappointing, but those fantasy points that Garendo got were going to be Mason's. So basically, you had a really good game. But Garendo, if Garendo's available in waivers, your people are going to want to pick him up. Because guess what, folks? Like, you want the starting running back, and we've seen this all season in San Francisco. So if Mason is out longer than that, we will see. Keep an eye on that news. Garendo's the piece you want that for. Offensively for the Cowboys, man, like, what do they do at running back, right? Because Rico Dowdle went out. They were running the ghosts of Ezekiel Elliott and freaking Dalvin Cook combined. They had 16 carries for check stones, 46 yards. 2 receptions for 14 yards. It's those guys just do not bring explosive element at all. They are what we call not good. The problem is Deuce Vaughn's just not an NFL quality running back, so they're forcing those guys without Rico Dowdle. This is why we liked Rico Dowdle, because Rico Dowdle, actually an NFL quality running back who does a little bit more than those can do. So I know people were excited for Cook, Cowboys fans, stuff like that. He's not good, man. Like, we just gotta let that stuff go. It's just it's brutal. So no, thank you. I'm just so not looking forward to that. It's the CeeDee Lamb show, man. CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, you know what you're getting. Outside of that, Dak Prescott's been severely up or down. This offense kind of goes with him. He's just struggled. He's currently the quarterback 19. So I know how much Dak struggled. He's still scoring more points per game than freaking Patrick Mahomes. That's the thing that really worries me. Like, neither one of these guys are even viable for you. Both of them were top 8 quarterbacks in draft this year. So he has Atlanta, he has Philadelphia, he has Houston in the next 3 weeks. We will see if it gets better for Dak, but the offensive line is the bigger problem for Dak. They're generating a lot of pressure. He's just not creating. I know CeeDee Lamb did his thing, but oh my gosh, CeeDee Lamb had to carry the squad. You're asking a lot if you expect CeeDee Lamb to freaking have to put up 13 receptions each week, 146 yards to really carry the offense. I don't think it's going to come there for them. So I don't know what they do, man. It's rough. It's what it is. Let's move on to, excuse me, something coming on that throat there. Let us move on to the final game we did not cover, and that is Tampa Bay and Atlanta. Kirk Cousins looked great. Baker Mayfield looked great. Both of these guys were really good in this game because the offenses were better than the defense. The bigger question mark for Tampa Bay is how they go, like with this Cade Otton, Rachaad White offense moving forward. Bucky Irving still saw 6 receptions, so you saw the running backs heavily targeted in this game. Between the two of them, I'm looking right now, they had 13 targets. They had 12 receptions. They did decent, about 80 yards combined. That's not bad. Sean Tucker got another target and reception in there as well. The wide receiver is clearly Jalen McMillan. He had his chance. 4 receptions, 7 targets, 35 yards. They used him in the rushing game as well. So if you're looking for a wide receiver to trust, Jalen McMillan, he's wide receiver 4. He's wide receiver 3 upside. Like, that's kind of where he's at. Until we see the targets coming, he's going to be in that range. Cade Otton's clearly like the usage for Cade Otton, and this is likely to be moving forward because they don't trust him. Right? The thing is, he has some really bad matchups. We have Kansas City, San Francisco, and then it lightens up after the bye week. So you have the Giants, Carolina, Vegas. That's a good stretch before we get in the playoffs. So if you want to get a cheap producing tight end moving forward, it's Cade Otton. He's clearly going to be a piece. But if you want the cheapest running back, it's going to be Rachaad White because he's still playing all those receptions. He's on the field and passing downs. That's kind of what Rachaad White does. Bucky Irving, I want to see if Bucky Irving earns more of that because if Bucky Irving earns more of that work and it consolidates around one of those guys, you have a viable, like an RB2 with RB1 upside. Right now, they're both kind of flexibility range. They're going to be like in the RB30 range. It just kind of is what it is. For the Falcons, we saw Bijan. It's clearly the Bijan backfield. What he did, he had 19 opportunities with 6 receptions, 6 targets, 37 yards, receiving, and a touchdown. Tyler Algier still, they split the carries, but the receiving work is there for Bijan. It's unfortunately he's not the RB1 we promised, but he's still good. Bijan's good enough to get there where he's getting the receiving work, and that's what he's doing. With his receiving options, Drake London had a disappointing day. Darnell Mooney did his thing. I'm not worried about Drake London. You know what you're getting. He just had a bad game. This happens at wide receiver. Darnell Mooney is a little bit more boom bust, but Kyle Pitts, like I was out on Kyle Pitts. But if you look at his usage from week 5 on, he has 8 targets, 5 targets, 9 targets, 5 targets, and receptions 7, 3, 7, and 4. That's fantasy viable. He's fine. He's currently the tight end 4. Like he's doing good things for you. Obviously, he had his blowout game this week. He finally did the thing where he got the touchdowns because he hadn't had any touchdowns since week 1. So, like, you know, with this offense, it's going to be really good. Their defense isn't that good, so they're going to count on these guys. So both of these teams are moving forward. You kind of like their players and matchups. It's just going to be a lot of fun. And I think for that, that's going to wrap up our week 8 NFL, believe it or not, recap. If you're staying with us this long into the show, I want to thank you for staying with us because we're on an hour at this point. please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, all posts. We appreciate all the love and support we get from you guys, because that is why we make this content, is for you. Obviously, like we're over 500 subscribers. Like, this is huge for us. We started at 0 early in January. We're working our way up towards it. We hope you're enjoying this ride with us. Tomorrow we are going to be doing our sit-start show. We are doing our waiver wire show going into week 9. So we'll be going over our top options. I'm going to be writing the article a little bit later tonight. I will drop it, and then we'll be going over those options. We're going to be using Sleeper. We'll talk about the guys under 50% roster on Sleeper, but we also talk about some of the guys in case they're available on deeper leagues or leagues where they're the guys that are somebody gets dropped. Maybe it's someone that's a little bit more viable and stuff like that. So I want to thank you all for joining us on our week 8, believe it or not, the NFL recap show. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow, folks, for the waiver wire.
Listen